good. Well, we're, good morning. I don't get any respect. Good morning, everyone. It's time to convene the meeting of the Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency for June 26th, 2025. We are here in the Woodland City Council chambers, and we're prepared to proceed with our meeting. Hopefully, our colleague David Moreno will be along in a little bit. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the agenda, please? Call the roll, please.
Certainly. See, Director Tom Stallard.
Present.
Director Josh Chapman. Here. Director Donna Neville.
Here.
To be installed. And Director David Moreno. Absent. Director Angel Barajas.
Here.
And Director Heather Davis. Or no, Courtney. Courtney Doss is here. Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here, Heather. Thank you. I've been Courtney. I do that every time. You know, it's written here on the agenda, Heather. All right. That allows us to proceed to our agency business. And the first item is one of the happy things we get to do, and that's having the oath of office administered for our newly appointed director, Donna Neville of Davis. Madam Clerk, would you swear in our new member, please?
I can do that. Please repeat after me. Donna Neville,
I, Donna Neville,
do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Perfect. Thank you.
Congratulations, Donna. We're glad to have you with us. All right, that moves to item 2. This has been advanced. Normally we do this later in the year, but with the stepping down of our previously designated chair, we are calling for an early selection of chair and vice chair for fiscal year 2025. And our tradition here is that we alternate the city's chair and vice chair. So currently it's a Woodland year, right? And clarify when the term of this particular election will end, if you would.
So our normal election is June.
You may have to do something, Mr. Attorney.
You may have to do it. You do it.
I will gladly do that. It's not entirely clear, but my recommendation would be that this term would just be tacked on to the upcoming term that would begin, I believe it's next meeting, right? If I recall correctly.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just going to be an extension because of the particular circumstances that occurred this trip.
Thank you. Are you prepared to be vice chair? Sure, it doesn't matter. Why don't you make a motion that I be chair and you be vice chair? You know, this is a very practical, expedient process. So the new vice chair is going to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that Tom Stoller from the city of Woodland be the next chair of the Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency.
And I would amend the motion to add that Josh Chaplin of the city of Davis be the vice chair as part of the same motion. Anyone second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Isn't that a nice collaborative way to do business? All right, so that brings us to item 3, which is approval of the agenda and the following consent items. And the consent items are just one, and that's the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. Any question about those minutes? Or any additions to the agenda? May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Oh, is there any member of the public that wishes to comment? None? None, Madam Clerk? All right, motion, please.
Motion to approve the...
Thank you. Josh moves to approve the minutes. Donna's going to second.
I was going to second, but I wasn't here, and so I was going to abstain.
All right.
But would you like me to second just for purposes of?
No, it's okay. I think you better, actually. There's no one else unless
Oh, then I will second. I will second the motion.
I could have seconded them. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes and the agenda. Further discussion? Public comment? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye? Aye? Aye. Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, and now we can move on to public comment. We are always and required by law to invite any member of the public to speak on any item related to the scope of our business here at the Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency. Does anyone wish to offer any comment on anything not otherwise on the agenda? There being none, nothing electronic. That concludes public comment. And we can move on to the gutsier things of the meeting. Item 5 is the Clean Water Agency General Manager update and Operations Manager update. And I believe we start with you, Tim.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Tim Bush, General Manager for Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency with our kind of usual topics for the update. Looking at water supply outlook for this year, long-term water supplemental water supply, and then the capital improvements, operations update, and the DER update. Water supply this year is looking really good. I was optimistic earlier in the year, and it's still a good year. So the graph that you can see on the screen right now is the 8-station index, which is really the Northern California precipitation. On the bottom row, it's days beginning October 1, which is the beginning of the water year, and the vertical is cumulative water precipitation. The top of the shaded area is the average, like the 30-year running average. The darker blue line is where we are as of a week ago. So we're at about 105, 106% of average, so just above average. Overall, a very good year for us. I'll look at the two big reservoirs upstream of us real quickly. Lake Oroville, same premise. The bottom is dates beginning October 1, and the vertical is storage in Lake Oroville. Lake Oroville did get completely full earlier this year. The total capacity is the blue line on top, horizontal line. Top of the shaded area is the average again. The solid blue line is this year, this water year. So it did top out May, June. It was actually completely full. So now it's declining a bit as is normal for summer months, but it's still well above average for the year. So it's looking very good.
I like that total reservoir over capacity
yes.
up there at the top. That must have been a sight.
They said it was the waves were driving water over the spillway. It actually got that full. That was right at the top of the spillway, so waves were sending water over it.
Good show.
Lake Shasta, very similar, not quite at 100% capacity, but it did get very, very close. Again, well above average. It is declining this year, as it normally does, but this time of year. So yeah, very good. Lake Shasta right now is still 85 or so percent of capacity. Still looks very good for us. Next graphic is term 91. I think, as probably most of the board knows, maybe I'll explain it a little bit in detail because we do have a new board member. So the agency has 2 water rights, and we operate under our primary water right. Most of the year, our state water board water right, that's enough water for year-round. However, it is subject to this term 91 curtailment, and there's a lot that goes into it. The real short version is that when the reservoirs have to release supplemental water to meet certain Delta water quality objectives, the term 91 can go into effect. The state did that on Friday last week. So we were watching it. We knew it was coming. We got the advance notice on the 19th, and then like early Friday morning, they declared the curtailment. Doesn't affect us a whole lot this year. Curtailment did start because it is starting later part of June, and we do have our full 10,000 acre feet of our Sac River Settlement Contract water right. The partners essentially can take all the water that they need throughout the summer. At least through the end of September. If we need to make any adjustments to stay under the 10,000 by October 31, we will do that in the month of October. The reason for that is because the reservoirs are in such good shape. If they operate them normally this year, their curtailment should end of September, early October, which means we could use all our 10,000 acre feet and not try to save until the end of October. So we'll make adjustments later if it ends up being a super hot summer or if the reservoirs are operated in a different way than normal. Talk a little bit about long-term water supply. This one we've been a little bit slow in getting going on. We are still planning to do a long-term water supply agreement with South Sutter Water District. Same plan as what we've had. There's also 2 potential other long-term agreements we might work on, but working on getting that going in earnest this next fiscal year. It's really back to us to come up with a long-term pricing plan, basically a term sheet, and then go back to meet with the people we're working on getting into an agreement with and working things out with them. And then we need to start CEQA for that. So we have that in the budget for the next fiscal year. May or may not need the depletion factor modeling. We're actually planning on trying to go forward with reservoir reoperation because we did that on the last 2 water transfer agreements, which worked well. It does get us out of having to assume loss of water on the way down. Another factor that's pushing us into the long-term supplemental water supply need is coming up later on the agenda today, and you've heard about this at previous board meeting, is the Drought Protection Plan Agreement, which will further restrict our CVP water right in certain years. Next slide. And with that, I will turn it over to Stan on capital improvements.
May I ask? Go ahead. Over in our CCA, what do we call it? Valley Clean Energy. We have a concept called resource adequacy where we actually have to have backup resources available under contract to show that we can meet our needs. Do we have any requirement like that in the water world?
Yes, multiple, more than one. In fact, we have to do an annual water supply demand assessment, which is due July 1 every year. That was just submitted a week ago, where we look at all of our water supply sources, the partners' demands. For the agency, it's a little bit odd because technically the agency has 0 customers. We're a wholesaler to the partners, and the partners have to meet their water demands, not us. So that's relatively easy for us to do.
Time to put on your City of Woodland hat. Stan
yes.
can do the same.
Yes, but then also every 5 years, we have to do an urban water management plan. The agency has to do that as well as the partners. And then that looks at going out 20 years into the future and looking at what are risks coming towards the agency from a larger water supply perspective. In past years, we had to look at a 3-year drought. Now we have to look at a 5-year drought. What does that do to our water supplies? So yes, that's at least the first 2 that come to mind that we have to do.
Thank you.
Tom, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in regards to agreements, you mentioned South Sutter. Is that a water district, or is that you're referring to Sutter County?
It's it is a water district. They're up off of the Bear River. They operate Camp Far West Reservoir.
Okay, and if we go into agreement with them, how much revenue are we looking to make, and that revenue gets rerouted to what fund?
Actually, we're paying them. We're paying them for water supply.
Or we're paying them?
Yeah, we've entered into agreements with them for the past 4 years, I think.
Right.
Maybe 5 now, for optional water supply in winter months, because we have water supply risk every year that the term 91 curtailment can go past October 31, in which case we cannot draw any water from the Sacramento River. So we've been doing water supply agreements with them that they make up to 2,000 acre feet available beginning November 1 through March 31 that we can buy in an option if needed. So we pay them $50,000 a year to make that water available to us, and we pay for permitting, and then if we actually use the water, then that $50,000 is credited toward the first water that we use, and then we pay for the water after that.
Okay, and if we don't use the water, then it would just be credited later?
They just keep the money if we don't use the water. So at that rate, it's an insurance policy for us.
Oh, wow. So,
Yes.
It's an insurance policy, basically.
Yeah.
But we don't pay full price up front. So we pay an option for a certain volume, and then if we go over that volume, we would pay the additional incremental fee. So we pay a portion up front, basically as insurance, and to lock in that water from them as ours if needed.
oh, I got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they're then obligated to keep that water in the reservoir for us, so they can't use it for any other purpose. And then they have to operate the reservoir differently to make water available to us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Angel.
Okay. Capital improvements. So we're undertaking, I believe we've mentioned this before, but we're undertaking a filter re-rating study this year into next fiscal. And that's in essence to see if we can gain some treatment capacity through the filters. If we can show they can handle more flow than what they're currently rated for, we could gain some additional capacity to put through the plant. Speaking to long-term water supplies and availability. Joint intake, so we mentioned this, the erosion control project is complete, but in essence, there's one small area where the upper area drains down, not where it was intended to drain down the levee. So there's a bit of erosion that'll get there when it's raining. So we're going to look at what we need to do to just clean that up. Shouldn't be an expensive proposition. Should be able to take care of that pretty quick. And then at the plant, obviously Jacobs has a number of projects that they brought up that could enhance the design of the facility. We obviously chat about those. No known cost support from the agency at this time. They're still discussing some of those changes. Okay. So in May, 19.5, little over 19 million per day on average. You can see the breakdown for the three partners there. And then obviously all contract requirements were met. Water quality reports on the agency website. And then as Tim mentioned, on the 20th, the Term 91 went into effect. So we're now pulling off of our 10,000 acre foot summer water right, which is available through October 31st. Also, as Tim mentioned, Urban Water Management Plan is a document we update every 5 years. That is coming up this year for its update. I will note that both Woodland-Davis and UCD, I believe. No? Okay. The two cities have to update their urban water management plans as well. So it's kind of a tag team event where all three of us are chatting frequently about the water supplies and what our futures look like. And then we had the watershed sanitary survey, which is a 5-year update. That's where we look at certain constituents on the river. We group together with other agencies to cost share in that endeavor. And then West Yost, we did per previous board request or direction, we did do basically an annual facility inspection. West Yost had we had an operations individual from West Yost conduct that inspection over a 2-day period, I believe. We will be seeing that report soon and the recommendations coming from that. In general, sounded just off of a verbal summary, sounded pretty good. So kudos to Jacobs, who's sitting to my left. And then Jacobs submitted a report and invoice for August electrical incidents. So as you know, we had a significant incident last August. We're reviewing those evaluations that were submitted, the cap, and also they sent in an invoice basically for uncontrollable circumstances, which by contract the agency would be subject to assist in paying for. So we are certainly working with our legal team to review that and have some further discussions with Jacob on that front. Okay. I'm going to turn this one over to Tim. He's actually been following this effort a lot more closely than I have to date. So
Mussels for dinner.
So I am not the golden mussel expert. However, I have attended a few meetings. So as part of our Sacramento River Watershed Sanitary Survey update, that's the partnership with the City of Sacramento, West Sacramento, PCWA, and East Bay Mud, looking at watershed quality in Sacramento River. They did a technical memo on the golden mussel. You've probably seen this on the news. It's been in the news quite a bit lately, especially related to boaters and taking boats to other reservoirs. It was detected in the Delta for the first time in October of last year. The map on the right shows all the detections they've had so far. Still all in the Delta, quite a bit south of Sacramento. However, I saw in the news a month or so ago, they found a boat at Thermalito with golden mussels on the boat. So the view of the Sac River group is that it's really only a matter of time before they spread. The picture on the left is a picture of one of them. Not particularly attractive. But what's dangerous about golden mussels as compared to like zebra mussels and coega mussels is that zebra mussels really struggle in the Sacramento River because there's very low calcium and low organics. The golden mussels thrive very well in that environment. So the group thinks that they're actually going to be a far bigger problem for us than other mussels are, should they spread into the Sacramento River system. So at this point, we're working on it with our larger team. Bureau of Reclamation is very much engaged along with CDFW. So there's a lot of people working on this, looking at how do you protect your system, because if they get into our intake, they'll get into our water treatment plant, and we don't have chlorine until way at the end. And does chlorine really even do anything to them? We're not sure. So that could be very negatively impactful for our operations if they get into the Sac River. So far, they haven't been seen. Near term, we may be asked to do monitoring at our intake to see are there any close to us or not. But this is more just bring your awareness to that this is potentially a big problem for the agency down the road, and that we are being proactive and trying to get ahead of it as best we can.
Are there any known predators for the golden mussel?
Not yet. That's one of the things that they're working on, is to try to see, because sometimes invasives don't do well in a new environment because sometimes they have predators that are not known, but so far they haven't figured that out yet.
We just had a 2-day conference conclude yesterday at the Yolo County Fairgrounds called the Salinas Biologics Summit, where people are researching to develop peptides and other things to basically attack specific species and take them out. So I don't know if anybody's looking at this particular problem in that lens, but it's probably a good idea.
One thing that they mentioned is that, I think it was DWR was looking at genetic modification to make them infertile, so they wouldn't reproduce. That's one thing that they're working on, but I don't know where that is at all. But
Our screens at the intake, they can get through those screens?
the juveniles will get through the screen.
Juveniles.
Yeah.
And there's not a way to have screens that are made that are fine enough to where the juveniles can't get through?
Maybe, but the juveniles are really small.
Are they?
Yeah. I don't know what it would take to screen them out, but that might be something that could happen. Copper works, but that's kind of, it doesn't work well with drinking water treatment plant. Yeah, so they're working on it. Screening may be an option, but I don't know what size would be required.
Okay. And then DER, so we're, the project that we've been poking at and looking into preliminary design for quite a while. So we're continuing with that. We do have a BOR Water Smart grant, which is on hold that we applied for. Also the SGIP program, which Davis has utilized for their wastewater plant. We do plan on applying for that, which hopefully could bring in some funding there. We're around 60% on the design, and a lot of lead time. So that second to last bullet, a lot of lead time right now on batteries in particular. So there's potential that we would pre-order that ahead of actually bringing someone on to install, and then also project delivery methods. Seeing what's the best method we can use to deliver the project, given some of those constraints for ordering and timeline. So.
And the grant is on hold because of federal policy?
Primarily, yes. Yeah, they did. I know BOR released some different grants just now, but yay Woodland, sorry. But Boo Davis, yay Woodland, sorry. But a lot of that is on hold from a federal perspective, so.
Any prognosis on that?
I'm sorry?
Any prognosis on when that's likely to be lifted, or if it will be lifted at all?
I have not heard any news on that front, have you?
No, I have not heard anything. We applied under the energy, I think it was energy reliability thing, and so they're kind of not, in favor of green energy these days. So, yeah, we haven't heard anything on that one yet. But there is some good news, though, that on the grant front.
For you.
For us, for Woodland. So Woodland, in partnership with Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency and Yolo County Water Supply and Conservation District, did apply for a different Water Smart grant under the Drought Resiliency Grant. And Woodland was selected for a $3 million grant through that program today. We received that this morning. Congressman Thompson sent us that information over. So that's for Woodland's next aquifer storage and recovery well project. So it's good news. So they're actually working on these grants now, and that was out of the blue. That one was on hold. If you looked at the website today, it still says it's on hold. So maybe we'll hear tomorrow about our DER grant. I don't know.
Remind me of the total cost of that additional ASR well.
It's probably in the neighborhood of $10 million total project cost, including design, construction, 2 different construction packages, and construction inspection.
Thank you. Questions?
So in regards to the ASR, well, if we get the grant, we get some funding, it's up and running, is there a human and capital cost to maintain that, or is there contracting, maintenance and operation surrounding that ASR well?
Yeah. The city of Woodland will operate and maintain that well. Woodland already has 3 aquifer storage and recovery wells, so they will just add that to their list. Around the same time, the Woodland will also be destroying 3 more wells, including 1 well that's active in the city system currently. So it's essentially an even trade in labor as far as I'm concerned. Operations may differ, but.
Okay, so that means that if it's even trade, then we're not going to go to our taxpayers and start increasing their bill dramatically, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Woodland's ASR well already has the majority of money to construct the well, and with the $3 million grant, that essentially completes the funding need for it.
Yeah, I just have one more question. There's 2 slides back. You were talking about the urban water management plan. Every 5 years, the cities do it. Is there an impact, or would you view it through the lens? Because the city of Woodland is having a measure come up, looking to expand some infrastructure over to Clark Pacific and Bayer. If that's the case, would this study incorporate that?
Yes. Yeah. As part of the urban water management plan, you have to look ahead in 5-year increments growth in the city, and that would be included in that.
Okay. When do you guys start, and how's the timeline around that study?
We will get started as soon as DWR releases the guidelines, which should be right around July 1, so theoretically next week. And it's due a year from after they release the guidelines. So it'll probably be due July of 26.
And the city of Woodland goes out to the voters in November 2026?
Yes.
So would that supplemental information help guide the voters?
Yeah, it can. Urban water management plan is it's very much more generalized. So we'll add them in. We'll add in any potential users that we see coming in over the next, in 5-year increments, so 20 years. So I don't know that they would be listed specifically, but it'll be in the overall totals of how much water we think we need to deliver in 2030 and 2035 and 2040.
I see. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do we have any kind of mutual aid agreement for water among our jurisdictions, or is it just generally done informally as needed?
That's a good question.
It depends. Well, no, there aren't any formal agreements. I would say the operation teams work frequently together and actually can pick up the phone and gain aid anytime they want. I think, we've worked with UCD operations folks, Woodland operations folks, and our team. We've gone to each other's agencies, done and basically assisted at times of need. From a pure water perspective, We kind of poked at that a little bit. UCD and Davis, obviously being connected or close together, we do have a couple interties where we can, in emergencies, the water would flow back or forth depending on who's at need. For Woodland, a little bit more difficult. You have 8 miles between us, so and we cannot turn around the plant water and push it back up the pipe. So a little challenge there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your responding to the question. Does that conclude your report, Stan?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any remaining questions of our staff? All right. That brings us to review and consideration of and approval of the fiscal 25-26 final budget. So today's the day if we're going to meet the July 1 deadline, right? All right. Who's presenting?
Yep, I'll be presenting that.
Thank you, Tim.
So not too many new things in the budget this year. We have the two usual categories, operation and maintenance. We have two categories. I just said that twice. Operation and maintenance, which is basically all the costs rolled up for operating and maintaining a water treatment plant, including paying for electricity, permit fees, that kind of stuff. And then the other part of it is our SRF debt payment schedule. I would like to point out that there's no longer reserve schedule in there. It's the last time I can say that. So first, our proposed budget for the next fiscal year beginning next week. Bottom line up front, about $21.7 million. I did look into our first real fiscal year budget back 2018-19. That was like the first year after we finished all the construction-related costs. And our budget back then was $20.2 million. So in 7 years' time, we've increased it like 5%. Not too bad, I feel like. So overall, we're holding
Pretty
the
good.
rather consistent budgets going forward. So in terms of the categories, the O&M categories.
I'd say we owe it all to this terrific board, but we know better.
Yes. And there's a couple of factors that happened this year that really help make that true. So O&M cost, about $11.4 million of the total. Of that, direct O&M cost, about $9.8 million. And I'll walk through what's in all these categories in the next following slides. $136,000 for O&M oversight, permits and water supply, $660,000, agency administration, $800,000, operations contingency, $409,000, and then debt service, just under $10 million. So in these major categories, you do have the full breakdown in Exhibit A.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When does the debt service conclude?
And Woodland has a 20-year loan, so about 11 more years. And
Okay.
Davis has a 30-year loan, so about 21 more years.
Thank you.
So under the major O&M budget category of direct cost, about $9.8 million. Of that, $5.4 million is the fixed and variable cost of actually treating and delivering water. From a physical perspective, $2.7 million is our electricity and pass-through chemicals. That does reflect electricity being over $1 million less expensive than last year. And then about a 20% or so increase in chemical costs year over year. We did include, at the last board meeting, we talked about DER, design and construction. The board did have some concerns about funding construction of the DER system, so we did take that out. The only thing that is included is $750,000 to finish the design. And with that, we need to get further along in design in order to apply for the Self-Generation Incentive Program PG&E grant. And so to that end, we're going to work with our agency attorney on, do we do design bid build or design build? And so we may not go 100% design. We may get to a certain point and hand it off to a contractor, and that will depend a bit on the SGIP grant program and what kind of grant funding we can line up. So the proposed budget has really just design money. It has it including to complete design fully, but we may stop early if through SGIP we can do something else and get to construction faster. But some more to come of that in the future. So we did include design just to keep moving on that. The tiny erosion control project, this is quite minor, and power metering. The power meter that was installed at the intake in January hasn't quite been recording power usage. So we're working with WAPA on getting that corrected. So there's some work on our end to help that happen and then understand who exactly is paying for what power over the intake. Going forward. So we did put some budget in the budget that we think that we probably will have to catch up on power bills in the next fiscal year. We have not paid for electricity usage this year at the intake. So I'm thinking we may catch up in a couple of months after this all gets worked out. Supplemental water purchase, that's the option agreement for this winter. $50,000 for the option, and then we do have budget in there in case we actually need to buy water this winter. The filter re-rating study, which Stan mentioned, that's to basically permit the plant to a higher capacity. The plant was designed and constructed to operate at 34 million gallons per day. Right now, we're permitted to deliver 30 million gallons per day, and we're thinking that by completing the study, we can permit it to 34, which would then allow the partners to use more water when it's available and they have that need. So relatively low expense to get us quite a bit more capacity. The next $500,000 is a summary of all kinds of smaller things. Extraordinary expenses, repair and replacement expenses, that's $250,000. The plant is starting its 10th year of operation now, so I looked it up. The plant's been running for almost 80,000 hours so far. So when you get to that many hours in, some of the things like chemical pumps need to be replaced. We have an R&R schedule that we're going to be reviewing soon because some things are lasting longer, some things a little bit less, and that's expected. So we're starting to see a little bit of that. Permitting fees, water rights fees, and reporting requirements, you've heard me complain about that before. Those just increase a lot every year. We have to pay a lot in permit fees. Next slide, please. Continuing on, the O&M oversight, this is primarily work that West Yost does for us. So we do have contracted operations. Jacobs operates the water treatment plant for us. So we do have to spend some money making sure that all the service contract requirements are met. And then there's some budget for technical and program support for either the agency itself or each partner as requested. Permits and water supply, $660,000. This is primarily to support a long-term water supply agreement. Most of that's for a secret document, getting into a secret document for a long-term water transfer agreement. Continue agency administration, $800,000. That funds the agency staff, treasury and accounting services, legal. Insurance is the biggest single expense in that category. It's $298,000 for the next fiscal year. It's gone up quite a bit, more, I think, 25% a year for the past several years. And then miscellaneous, other thing, organizational memberships. I did look into insurance with Aqua again. And again, they told me no because we're an agency backed by cities. They won't let us join them. So I don't know if there's another option to YC Permia, but I tried to swap again and I got shot down for the second time.
The insurance, that's your liability insurance?
No,
Or it's some other.
We only have property insurance.
Oh, okay, that's why, because 290,000 was sounding delightfully low for liability insurance for a minute there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, we're only property, and it's kind of, and part of it's just the cost of replacement has doubled. So the cost of equipment is much higher than it was even 5 years ago. So that's part of it. Just the insurance industry in general has gotten a lot more expensive. And then operations contingency, that's the $409,000. That's in case something happens, we need to use that money. We have to date not used it. So that just rolls over year after year. Next slide, please.
And does our insurance, again, through someone who specializes in water agencies, or is this part of the county's?
We're part of the counties. We're part of YC Permia.
So we're paying the 200 and some odd thousand to them.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the other major budget categories are debt payments, Woodland SRF payment, and UC Davis SRF payment. Those are the annual totals. Next slide, please. So next look at how we're doing this fiscal year, the fiscal year that is almost over. We have an approved budget this year of $23 million. It looks to be that we are going to underspend the O&M category by about $1.95 million. A good chunk of that is because electricity, we're spending a lot less on electricity than planned, a bit less on water production than planned, but actually I'll get into that more in the following slides. I got ahead a little bit. So O&M oversight, basically run on target. Permits and water supply, we're underspending by about $500,000 because we haven't done the long-term agreement yet. And then agency admin on track, operations contingency we did not use. And then debt reserve payment is underspending by about $350,000, and that's because Woodland completed the reserve payment in December, so we did not have to do it in June. So altogether, we're planning to underspend this year's budget by about $3.3 million.
Wow. That's
Next
impressive.
slide, please. Comparison of the next fiscal year budget with the current year budget. So overall O&M category, about $660,000 less. And then O&M oversight, the next four categories, basically no change. And then SRF payment, $665,000 less. So about 1.25 million less than the current fiscal year budget.
Why is the SRF payment going down?
Woodland's debt payment had a 10-year reserve payment that they had to make at $665,000 per year. That was completed in December.
So we don't have to add to the reserve payment?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. It's all good news.
So kind of reasons why the budget is different a little bit than last year. So O&M, I kind of touched on this a little bit already. $660,000 lower, primarily due to the $1 million+ reduction in electricity cost and a bit more. We also didn't quite get as far in the DER as I thought we would. But then on the new budget, money for completing DER design and the money for the filter re-rating study. The other categories, no real change. O&M oversight. Next slide, please. Permits, water supply, admin budget. Admin budget is a little bit higher, primarily due to the urban water management plan that we have to do this next year. Again, that's once every 5 years. No change to the contingency from previous years, and the debt service payments again are $665,000 lower.
Here it is, with the answer to my question.
So how that works out for the partners individually, of the $21.3 million overall budget, Woodland about 11.5 million, Davis about 8.8 million, UC Davis 640,000, RD 2035 250, and R&R Fund 250, and that's to fund some of the planned replacements at the water treatment plant. We put money away into that fund every year, so we're going to take some from that to pay for some planned work. And with that, recommend approval of the agency's budget for next year. We can take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. That was a nice, clean presentation. Colleagues, do you have questions of our staff? Courtney has no questions. Thank you. Josh has no questions.
Just a couple.
Please, we'll start.
Thank you.
Donna.
You mentioned earlier that your electricity costs went down by $1 million this year. Is that because you changed providers, or?
Yes. Yeah, we had applied in 2017. I like this story. We had applied back in 2017 to join WAPA, Western Area Power Authority, as a power supplier. We were approved in 2020, contracts in 21, 22 for electricity starting January 1 of this year. So we switched, the water treatment plant itself was switched to WAPA in January 1. The intake on the river has always been part of WAPA.
Okay.
But one of our biggest single costs is electricity. It takes a lot of electricity to treat drinking water. So that saved us something like in the neighborhood of 40% on our electricity cost.
That's great. That's great. Just one other question. How much do you have in reserve? What's your reserve?
Our reserve budget
percentage?
right now is pretty healthy. Our target was what, 1.5 million. Our target's about 1.5 million, but we actually hold a bit more than that. Neighborhood of $7 million.
And that translates into percentage-wise about,
About 30%.
Wow.
About
Okay.
30%. And we had that primarily because we don't know when the next drought is happening. And I'll get into that in a couple items down. But a couple years ago, we had to spend close to $5 million purchasing water.
Okay.
So a lot of the money that we've been holding in reserve is for the next drought, essentially.
Okay. No, that's great, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Angel?
Yeah, and just trying to reconcile these numbers here. So on one of your slides, we're looking at 21.7 or it's $21.8 million in cost, and revenue is 21.4 million.
Yes. Yeah, there's a bit of a difference is because of the contingency, the $409,000 contingency. Instead of charging the partners for that contingency and then giving the money back and taking it again, we just leave it in that account. So we just leave the contingency money alone and roll it over year after year. So in the budget approval, it includes it, so it's in the budget in case something happens and we need it. It's there. We don't have to go back to the board for a special meeting, and we need some money for something. If it's over $50,000, it would go to the board for approval for spending anyways, but it wouldn't have to go to the partners. So we don't need to request the money from the partners because the agency already has it from previous years.
Okay.
And that's why there's that $400,000 difference.
In the remaining balance after the 24-25 fiscal year, we had a surplus of $3.36 million.
Yes.
So how much of that goes into the reserve versus rolling it over to, say, the general fund?
Yeah, so what typically happens is that the money goes back to the partners. It takes us a few months to finish all the fiscal year invoices. So typically by September or October, we have that done. And then the money could go back to the partners respectively, like how much is Woodlands, how much is Davis, how much is UC Davis. Alternatively, if the DER project gets grant funding and we want to move forward with that, and this would of course come back to the board, that money could be retained to pay for the non-grant portion of DER. If that doesn't happen, it could go back to the partners. But typically, it takes several months because we get bills 2 or 3 months after the fiscal year for the previous fiscal year, and it takes some time after that to allocate it to the 2 partners, or the 3 partners, sorry.
Does that take this board to take action on that? Or do we, in other words, do we get a report by September and then we make that policy decision? Or not me, because I'm a non-voting member, but I just want to know.
Yeah, it doesn't go back to the board for approval, but it does show up in the Treasury report.
Okay.
Yeah, the Treasury report, it'll be like the Q4 Treasury report will say, after we balance all the books, we had X money that we did not spend, and that goes back to the 3 partners and the dollar amounts that it goes back to.
Yeah, the normal is it would come off of one of the quarterly invoices for the partners as a reconciliation. If we were going to suggest retaining it as staff, then that would come back to the board for discussion.
Got it.
So if we were going to do that, that certainly I think would come back to the board to have that policy discussion.
That's never happened before.
No, typically we have done that, but we haven't undertaken, since we've been in operations, we haven't undertaken potentially a larger scale capital like the DER that we're looking at. So the largest impact that we've seen, which is why we're carrying a little bit of that reserve higher than what the original board target was for water rights purchasing or water purchases in times of need. So, but as Tim mentioned, we're pretty healthy on that front. So we probably wouldn't recommend retaining any of that for water purchases.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So we have a budget discussion, further discussion. I think, is this a public hearing issue? Yeah.
This doesn't require a public
Okay.
hearing.
Well, we will ask for public comment on our budget. What does the Jacobs contingent think? We want you happy. Okay. Looks like everybody's happy here. So I propose the question is to adopt the budget, right? Do we have a motion to adopt our budget as presented?
Chair Solid, I will move approval of the 25-26 budget.
Thank you,
I
Director.
would second that.
Director Chapman moves adoption of the budget. Director Neville seconds the motion. Is there further discussion? And no further public comment. That being the case, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Thank you. And staff, you did a great job. Thank you. All right. Let me get the agenda back here. So that's probably the toughest thing we have to do today. So that moves us along to item 7, consider approval of the 25-26 consultant contract task order with West Yost and Associates. Tim?
Yep, West Yost has been the agency's engineer since the beginning of the agency, back in 2009. So West Yost helps us out with quite a few things. It helps us with, after we pay our invoices, they help split that up amongst the partners. They help to ensure that Jacobs is following the service contract for us. And then the other thing that's it's kind of new this time, or not entirely new, is completing the design of the DER. So their overall contract task order is around $1 million. The vast majority of that is the DER component, and the rest of it is more usual work with them. You can take any questions you have, but I recommend approval of their contract.
Questions of the board, from the board? There being none, members of the public, questions or comments? There being none, do we have a motion to approve the contract with West Yost and Associates?
So moved.
Motion by Director Chapman,
Second.
second by Director Neville. Further discussion? There being none. Further public comment? There being none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Brings us to item 8, consider resolution 2502, approving agency's participation in the Sacramento River Settlement Contractors Drought Protection Program Agreement and related activities as a CEQA responsible agency under the program. General Manager Bush?
Yes. So this item, I talked about at length back at our January meeting, but at that time it was too new to be able to take any action on. And we did have to go back as a CEQA responsible agency, review the EIR and the mitigation measures and make sure that we're comfortable with all that before moving forward. Next slide, please. So these are the same slides I had back at the January meeting, so I'll go through them maybe more quickly this time unless you want me to talk about them in more detail. So agency has 2 water rights. Our state water board water right, that's our primary water right year-round, except for when term 91 is curtailment, like right now. Typically, it's May to September. This year started in June. In dry years, it can go much later. It's gone to Christmas several times in our years of operation. So it can go quite a bit later in certain years. When term 91 is in effect, because that's a common thing, it happens 9 out of 10 years, we own a CVP water right, 10,000 acre feet, which is a Sac River Settlement Contract water right. That one we can use April 1 to October 31 every year. There is a term in that water right that allows reclamation to cut that water right by 25% in a Shasta critical year. That happens when Lake Shasta does not get enough inflow in winter time. And usually it's telegraphed well ahead of time. They notify us in writing, is it a critical year, yes or no? But one thing happened in 2022. If you recall, the 2022 drought was very bad. Shasta was very low. I think it was under 1 million acre feet at one point. Reclamation cut our water right by 82%. That was the year we had to buy quite a bit of water to make it through the year. So from a Sac River settlement contract perspective, our contract isn't quite as sound as we thought it was. They can change that if they want to. Next slide, please. The other thing that's been going on the river, as we talked about before, is the State Water Board wants to impose 55% unimpaired flows on the Sacramento River system, which would, in a few words, truly devastate water storage in the state. The alternative plan is Healthy Rivers and Landscapes, which would make water available specifically for salmon more when they need it, grow food for salmon, but also, probably more importantly, preserve cold water in Shasta for salmon and migration. And that was one of the biggest problems in drought years, is that the water coming out of Shasta got too warm and the small salmons did not survive. So the Drought Protection Plan agreement with Sac River Settlement Contractors and Bureau of Reclamation essentially works to preserve more water in Shasta. So in the next slide, this slide kind of walk through this real quick. So this looks at the actual drought years 2013 through 15. How the black line is how Shasta actually operated. And then with the DPPA in place, what would have happened? So at the end of that 3-year drought, Shasta would have about 1 million more acre feet of water stored. So it would go into the dry season with 2 million acre feet rather than 1. So that's a big improvement for cold water for salmon and just water in general for everybody. Next slide, please. So overall, how it's projected to work. So they looked at, Sac River Settlement Contractors looked at 100 years of record on the Sac River system. How do these years look over 100 years? So 30% are wet. You can see the percentages throughout the different year types. Shasta critical year is triggered 16% of times, so 1 out of every 7 or 8 years is typically a Shasta critical year, and a lot of times that happens back-to-back years when it does. And that's when we get a 25% cutback on our water rights. The goal of the DPPA is to let some additional water through 100,000 acre feet per year in the drier year types, but in the really dry years, preserve 500,000 acre feet in Shasta instead of delivering that to the water contractors, of which we are one of them. So the agreement adds another tier into our water rights such that instead of our 25% cutback, they can cut it to 50% in certain year types. Looking over the 100-year historical record, that would have happened 7 times. So the average would be 7, or percentage would be 7% of years. The big caveat to that is that 4 of those last 7 years happened in the last, 4 of the last 7 happened in the last 10 years. So going forward is probably higher than 7% annual chance. we don't really have a choice in this, I feel like. The alternative to this program is unimpaired flows.
Is what?
Is unimpaired flows.
Unimpaired.
The 55% unimpaired flows in the river. The kind of the carrot and stick approach is that if agencies don't adopt this agreement, they will have to act as though unimpaired flows is in place, meaning pretty drastic cut to our CVP water rate.
Do we qualify as a water contractor?
Yes.
Okay. So it's essentially a bit of a blackmail, but, everybody cares about the fish. That's important too, so.
Yes, but we are getting some revenue from this. So the Bureau of Reclamation made $250 million.
No water to drink, but we'll give you some candy money, right?
Yes. Yeah, so Woodland-Davis Clean Water Agency is in line for about $1.4 million of that money. So they will transfer to us by the end of July this year. It does have to go to drought resiliency projects. The agency itself, as an agency, because we're very new and everything is piped, we don't really have drought resiliency projects. However, because the agency owns the water rights, the agency owns the water rights in the city's ASR programs. So it is a drought resiliency project for the agency to take this money and fund the respective aquifer storage and recovery programs in the respective partners' programs. So Woodland is designing and constructing a new aquifer storage and recovery well. Design just started for that. City of Davis is looking at retrofitting some existing wells to aquifer storage and recovery wells. We've already checked with the Sac River Group. That applies to this program, so we actually can do that.
Okay.
So that's kind of our plan for the money. The agency itself, there's not much we can do to protect ourselves from, there's no projects to protect ourselves from drought that we can really do.
Thank you. I think Donna has a question.
Yeah, excuse me, thank you. I appreciate, the way the modeling is usually done over 100 years, average kind of thing. And you mentioned that these critical dry years are, several of them occurred in the last several, and we know that. We know that if you actually, well, I'm not going to assume that, but is someone doing the modeling where they actually look at it over time to see how increasingly dry things are becoming, where you can realistically project the real percentages now that we're seeing the impact of climate change?
Yeah, the Sac River Settlement Contract Groups works with MBK primarily, and they do all the modeling for us. For this particular analysis, they only looked at the past 100 years of record and not what climate change may do to us going forward. But yeah, it's definitely recognized that we've been through 2 major long-term droughts in the past 10 years. And the urban water management plan certainly takes that into account, that we're having now to look at a 5-year drought, not a 3-year drought.
And I would say WDCWA has previously conducted an analysis to that effect with MBK. It's a few years now, so it's a tad dated, but we actually looked at a more recent record plus looked forward.
Great,
To try and gain those additional percentages that we might see those types of years.
Yeah, thank you. And there was one point you made, I'm not sure that I really understood quite what you were explaining about the unimpaired flow, and if you could just kind of elaborate on that or explain it again.
Yeah, so the State Water Board is trying to help salmon. Everybody's trying to help salmon. So their approach for salmon recovery was to basically take 55% of all the inflow in the Sac River system and let that go out to the ocean.
Yes.
Which would affect all the big reservoirs upstream of us, even Indian Valley Dam here in Yolo County. That they would all have to release a certain amount of water to make sure that 55% of all the inflow goes out. The major problem for us is that will really devastate storage in the big reservoirs. That Shasta and Oroville will have to let a lot of water go to hit that 55% target every year, which in a wet year probably doesn't make much difference, but when you get these dry years subsequent, there won't be the storage in the reservoirs. So that essentially, what it really means for us, it almost zeroes out our CVP water right in most years.
Okay.
Because the water in Shasta would have to be let go, and then Shasta will not have the storage needed to deliver water to us.
Got it. It's that age-old tension in water law. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Sac River Settlement contractors, together with Bureau of Reclamation, are working on, well, if we do things on our end and prove that we actually can preserve water in Shasta to help salmon when they need it with colder water and in releases to feed them through the the work they're doing in the Yellow Bypass, that would help them tremendously as opposed to unimpaired flows. So it's kind of helped proving the Sac River Settlement contractors together are about 2.1 million acre feet, so it's by far the biggest user of Shasta water. So if this group can prove we can manage Shasta in a way that helps salmon, help the state agree to not do unimpaired flows.
Got it.
Well, and your recommendation is?
The recommendation is to adopt the drought protection plan agreement.
Thank you. Colleagues, further questions of staff? Members of the public, any questions or comments? Nothing electronic? Then our
And just
attorney
a
should
point
do-
of clarification, the staff recommendation is actually to adopt the resolution 2025-02 rather than just approve the agreement. The agreement approval is part of the resolution. It also does your CEQA approval as well and directs the general manager to take certain actions to implement this so you can get your 1.14 million bucks.
Thank you. With our council's comments as part of the record, and I presume then they would be part of the motion as interpreting the motion that we're about to consider. May I have that motion, please?
So I would move that we approve Resolution 2025-02, approving our participation in the Sacramento River Settlement Contractors Drought Protection Program Agreement. Is that sufficient?
And if I may add, and to take the related actions as a CEQA responsible agency under the program.
Very good. And to take the related actions as a CEQA responsible agency under the program.
Thank you, Donna. Seconded by Josh Chapman. Further discussion? There being none, no further comments from anyone? Time to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And number 9 is to consider authorizing the general manager to complete the Spring Lake Fire Protection District assessment ballot. And we did get a good staff report on this. I doubt if there's much question. It's just we have our facilities in the land of that particular district, and we get an assessment, and the issue is, are we willing to pay it?
Yes, and I would like to point out that the fire department has been to the water treatment plant twice in the last 2 years fighting fires. So we do actually use their services.
All right. I would be prepared to proceed to a motion without further staff report. Public comment? Staff or questions from our board? There being none, is there a motion to agree to that particular payment assessment? The chair will move the item. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the general manager to complete the Spring Lake Fire Protection District assessment ballot in the voting favorably for the assessment. No further discussion. There being none, no further public comment, none. All in favor of the action, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now for the long-range board calendar.
So our next regular scheduled board meeting is September 17 in Davis. Usual GM and Ops report, treasurer's quarterly reports for quarter 4. And then hopefully, we do have to eventually update our agreement with RD 2035 for electricity at the joint intake facility. That's been delayed a bit because of our meter issues over there, but hopefully we'll get that worked out. And our agreement with them has some very detailed steps on how we split the power bill. But now that we had 2 meters over there, we need to simplify that agreement essentially. But we're still waiting a bit to be able to do that. So hopefully we'll have that by September, but I'm not entirely hopeful. But then also likely for September would be the option agreement for winter water supply.
Thank you, Tim. That leads us to board member comments. Are there any? All right, there being none, any comments from Jacobs? We appreciate you being here and watching this action. Okay, all is well. Nice to hear. All right. Without further ado, then, we will adjourn to the next regular board meeting, currently scheduled for Thursday, September 18th at 3 p.m. at the Davis City Hall Council Chambers in Davis. Thank you. We're adjourned. We shoot for 1 hour. We did pretty good.